With Clock Tower Rewind, the first ever official translated release of the original 1995 groundbreaking survival horror Clock Tower right around the corner, I, Suggestive Gaming, figured now would be a perfect time to go over the story of the entire cult classic series so far. While the series features 4 official titles, only the first 2 of which were directed by series creator Hifumi Kono, 2 separate spiritual successors to the series have been created over the years. 2005's Haunting Ground by Clock Tower 3 developer Capcom, as well as Kono's long-awaited, but not as well received, return to the genre with 2016's NightCry. In true Suggestive Gaming fashion, I'll be including the stories of each of them during the tail end of this video as a special Halloween bonus. Seeing as nearly every game I'll be covering in this video contains at least 4 different endings, save for Clock Tower 3, which only has 1 ending, thank you Capcom, I'll be throwing in all of the potential outcomes as they could potentially occur in the story. Keep in mind that while none of the games I'll be covering have a confirmed canon ending, only certain endings of the first game make it possible for the events of the second to occur. Also note before I begin that I'm going to be spoiling the entire story of the Clock Tower games, including the very first game I'll be covering, which is just now getting released. I wholly recommend playing these games if you have an interest, especially the first one now that you have no excuse not to. However, if you want to see what happens after Clock Tower Rewind without tracking down all of the older games, use those chapter markers to skip ahead and enjoy. Now, without further ado, this is what you need to know about the Clock Tower series. Our story begins in September of 1995, where we find Jennifer Simpson, a 14-year-old orphan living in the Granite Orphanage in Norway. One day, Jennifer, along with her friends and fellow orphans Laura, Anne, and Lotte, are all adopted by a wealthy recluse named Simon Barrows. The girls are then led by a woman named Miss Mary to the illustrious Barrows mansion, adorned with a massive clock tower. Inside, the girls marvel at their new home's size, as Miss Mary leaves them in the main hall as she goes to retrieve Mr. Barrows. However, when Miss Mary doesn't return, Jennifer elects to go search the mansion for her, leaving her 3 friends behind. It doesn't take long for Jennifer to learn that something in the mansion isn't right, as she finds no signs of Mary before hearing a scream from the main hall. When Jennifer rushes back, she finds her 3 friends mysteriously nowhere to be found. As Jennifer continues to search the mansion for any of her former companions, she soon finds one of her friends viciously murdered. While their killer is initially unknown, Jennifer is quickly introduced to him, a seemingly deformed young boy wielding a massive pair of scissors, known as the Scissor Man. Jennifer proceeds to run, hide, and otherwise evade the Scissor Man in any way possible, as she searches the mansion for any other survivors as well as a means of escape. At one point, Jennifer finds a car in the mansion's garage. If she chooses, Jennifer can leave her friends behind and escape on her own. However, as she drives off, she soon finds that she's not truly alone, as the Scissor Man emerges from the back seat. If Jennifer witnesses all of her friends' deaths and then escapes on her own in the car, she returns to the orphanage, but is found dead in her room 3 years later. If Jennifer instead decides to stay behind, she learns the disturbing truth behind the Barrows family. As it turns out, the actual master of the mansion is Mary Barrows, Miss Mary herself. Furthermore, she had given birth to twin boys, Bobby and Dan, who were delivered by a Dr. Walter Simpson, Jennifer's own long-lost father. Jennifer finds her father's skeleton along with a memo he had written detailing the twins' birth, in which they ate the doctor's hand. Walter refers to the boys as demons with deformed bodies, regretting that he didn't snuff their evil out of existence when he had the chance. Walter was then trapped inside a hidden room in the mansion where he was left to die, thinking only of his daughter who he never got to see again. One of the twin boys, Bobby Barrows, eventually became the very same murderous Scissorman that still pursues Jennifer. If Jennifer doesn't find her father's remains, she still learns of Miss Mary's deceit, as the girl finds the woman acting as if nothing is amiss. Mary then gives Jennifer a drink to calm her down, but as everyone but Jennifer could predict, the drink is spiked with poison, causing the girl to pass out. When she awakens, Jennifer finds herself inside of a locked cell alongside a fellow prisoner who introduces himself as Simon Barrows. Simon cryptically states that Jennifer is being watched from the cradle under the star. Luckily, Jennifer escapes this predicament thanks to a surviving Lotte. Further exploring the mansion, Jennifer learns of some kind of ceremony conducted in a special room. Finding and unlocking this room, Jennifer discovers that it contains a hidden passageway underground. There, Jennifer follows a cloaked Mary, potentially finding a mortally wounded Lotte. Underground, Jennifer then stumbles upon the cradle under the star, finding it to be the current living quarters of Dan Barrows, one of the deformed demonic twins now grown to a massive size. Jennifer then runs from a pursuing Dan, eventually throwing an explosive box at him, igniting and seemingly killing one of the Barrows boys. As Jennifer escapes into a hidden elevator, however, a shadowy figure emerges from Dan Barrows's charred remains. Jennifer then takes the elevator back to the surface, emerging to eventually confront Mary in a final showdown within the clock tower. Mary, enraged that Jennifer killed her son, attempts to return the favor with either her own hands or by sicking Bobby on her. Additionally, Jennifer can find Anne, the sole potential survivor, who is either rescued or mercilessly killed by Mary. Regardless, Jennifer is able to use the clock tower to kill both Bobby and his mother, Mary Barrows, bringing an end to her nightmare. As Jennifer steps out onto the rainy balcony of the clock tower, either alone or with her friend Anne, the rain stops, and as the clouds part, Jennifer soaks in this moment of freedom and safety, perhaps deep down knowing it to simply be fleeting. 1 year later, we find Professor Samuel Barton, a criminal psychologist examining the case of the clock tower murders. Jennifer Simpson, one of only 2 survivors of Scissorman's murders in this continuity, agrees to help in Barton's investigation, participating in hypnotherapy sessions in an attempt to uncover her suppressed memories of the event. During one of these sessions, Barton's assistant, Helen Maxwell, stops him, fearing that he's taking things too far. Helen, as it turns out, has grown close to Jennifer over the year following the murders, taking her in and adopting the now 15-year-old girl. While Barton appreciates the 2 girls' relationship, he notes that while Helen is Jennifer's guardian, she's still his assistant. Barton then participates in an interview with a newspaper reporter named Nolan Campbell, who is a 26-year-old fully grown man, as well as his cameraman, Tim. While the reporters try to grill Barton on the clock tower murders, he instead chastises them for their sensationalism of the case, leading to Scissorman becoming a figure of local legend instead of being taken seriously. After the interview wraps up, Barton returns to his office to meet with the other survivor of the clock tower murders. Beforehand, however, he speaks with a research assistant named Harris Chapman, who secretly has a bit more than a crush on Jennifer, about a demon statue that was recovered from the Barrows mansion. Seeking a professional opinion on it, Barton either sends the statue with Harris to be taken to a former butler of the Barrowses named Rick, or takes it himself to the local head librarian, Professor Sullivan. Afterwards, Barton enters his office to meet with the other survivor of the clock tower murders, a young boy known only as Edward. While Jennifer had no recollection of ever seeing the boy during her time at the mansion, he nonetheless was recovered with her and taken back to the Granite Orphanage. There, the boy, who was left with no memories of his past, was eventually adopted by one of the caretakers, Kay Satterwhite, who gave him his name. As Barton begins to work with Edward, 2 different paths emerge. In one scenario, Jennifer takes charge, returning to her former orphanage to meet Kay Satterwhite and Edward. Afterwards, Jennifer finds Nolan Campbell, waiting for her at her home, hoping to interview the girl about the clock tower murders. When he sees her, however, the 26-year-old fully grown man instead asks the 15-year-old girl on a date. The young girl then accepts this invitation from the strange man who showed up outside of her house, agreeing to meet with him later. As she goes to do so, however, Jennifer realizes that she's being followed and runs to the nearby university research building to ask for help from a security guard. Unfortunately, the security guard doesn't get a chance to find the weirdo stalking her as he is suddenly impaled by a giant pair of scissors. Jennifer's nightmare comes true as she sees the return of Scissorman, forced to run and hide from him once again. Taking refuge in the university, Jennifer finds other victims of Scissorman before successfully escaping. The next day, Jennifer meets with Helen and Assistant Inspector Stan Gotts at the police station to tell them about the events of the night prior. Unable to simply rest like Gotts asks her to, Jennifer joins Helen in their own investigation, hoping to track down the demon statue from the Barrows mansion. At this point, Helen can either search the library or Nolan can visit Rick. If Helen searches the library, she finds Edward there as well, and is forced to help him hide when Scissorman strikes. If Nolan meets Rick, Scissorman attacks there as well, killing the old man by dropping his chandelier on him. If the statue isn't found at the location that's searched, Helen and Jennifer's investigation comes to a close, as the familiar sound of metallic scissors are heard approaching Jennifer in her room. In the other case, Helen or Nolan retrieve the demon statue and learn of the Barrows Castle in England. Hoping to finally get to the bottom of the mysteries behind the Barrows family, as well as the Scissorman that relentlessly pursues her, Jennifer decides to travel to England to find and investigate this castle. Accompanying her are Nolan and his cameraman Tim, Assistant Inspector Gotts and Professor Barton, researchers Harris and Beth, Edward and Kay, as well as Helen. The group then fly to England and embark on their journey to find the Barrows Castle. When they find it, however, Jennifer is captured by Scissorman, who takes off a mask to reveal his identity as Harris Chapman. Harris explains that the real Scissorman convinced him to dress up as him, commit the new string of murders, then bring Jennifer to the castle to kidnap her, promising to hand her over to him afterward. Before Harris can claim his prize, however, the real Scissorman arrives and stabs him with his massive pair of scissors, forcing Jennifer to run and hide from him once again inside of the Barrows Castle. While investigating the castle, Jennifer finds Assistant Inspector Gotts barely alive. She also finds Beth, who gives her a key, as well as Professor Barton and Tim, both potentially killed by Scissorman. Jennifer learns more about the Barrows family, discovering the mummified remains of John Barrows, the original Scissorman who killed the local children, igniting the legend. Jennifer then learns that John's father, Quentin Barrows, killed his own son to stop his carnage, causing the rest of the family to mark him as a traitor. Jennifer also finds and rescues Helen, who states that they cannot leave the castle until they find a means to stop Scissorman once and for all. After finding a surviving but injured Nolan, as well as the ghosts of Scissorman's victims, Jennifer makes her way down into a hidden passage underneath a fountain. There, multiple different fates await Jennifer based on her actions in the castle. In one, she finds Edward in the hidden passage, who tells her he's found a way to escape. When they go to leave, however, Edward stabs her, revealing his true intentions as he watches her bleed out. In another, Jennifer finds Scissorman, but is suddenly stabbed to death by Kay. In the aftermath, only one survivor is rescued from the castle, a smirking Edward. Otherwise, Jennifer finds Edward standing over Kay's dead body, dressed in his Scissorman garb. Edward then reveals that his real name is Dan Barrows, revealing that the deformed demon twin had survived the explosion at the Barrows mansion, reforming into the boy who came to be known as Edward. As Dan goes to attack, Nolan arrives just in time to stop him, giving Jennifer a chance to conduct the same ritual Quentin Barrows did to destroy his own son. Jennifer recites an incantation that opens a door to a black void, which begins to pull everything inside. Jennifer grabs onto a railing, and Dan subsequently grabs hold of her. At this point, Jennifer is given the chance to defend herself. If she isn't able to, she and Dan are both pulled into the void as the doors close, seemingly killing both of them. Jennifer's sacrifice is then remembered by Helen and Nolan, who later visit her grave. If Jennifer is instead able to use a dagger she found to stab Dan, she forces him to let go of her, sending him flying into the void. Nolan is then able to make his way over to Jennifer as the doors close, pulling her to safety. Trapped in the rubble left behind by the vacuum of the void, the pair share a kiss, even though, again, Jennifer is 15 years old and Nolan is a 26-year-old fully grown man. Just then, the pair are rescued by Helen, who meets them with a crew of newscasters and police, bringing an end to Jennifer's possible scenario and hopefully a beginning to Nolan's jail sentence. In the other possible scenario, Helen takes charge of the Scissorman investigation instead of Jennifer, with most of the events carrying out the same way, with Helen in Jennifer's place, save for Helen sending Assistant Inspector Gotts to meet with Rick to find the statue instead of Nolan. Like Jennifer, if Helen loses the statue, Scissorman attacks their home, murdering both Jennifer and Helen before likely continuing his reign of terror. However, Helen's scenario begins a drastic deviance from Jennifer's as she reaches the Barrows castle. There, Jennifer goes missing, and Helen gets split up from the rest of the group when the ground beneath the castle quakes, knocking her unconscious. When Helen awakens, she explores the castle alone, learning the history of the Barrows family herself, finding Nolan and Gotts, the latter of which gives her his pistol to protect herself. Helen then breaks into the castle's chapel, finding Jennifer hung to a crucifix as Scissorman approaches her with his weapon. Helen rescues Jennifer by shooting at Scissorman, wounding him and forcing him to run. After removing Jennifer from the crucifix and ensuring her safety, Helen pursues Scissorman to find his true identity, Professor Samuel Barton. Side note, if Helen fails to save Jennifer or discover Barton's true identity, the professor kills her, leaving Gotts to later visit her grave. Barton explains that his obsession over the Clock Tower murder case drew him into Scissorman's evil soul, causing him to carry out the new spree of murders as the legendary killer. At this point, Gotts, Jennifer, and Helen can consider the case closed and escape the mansion, leaving the real truth behind the Scissorman hidden. Otherwise, Helen continues her search, learning of Scissorman's true identity as Edward, or rather Dan Barrows, reciting the same phrase to open the door to the void. Like Jennifer, Helen is then put at risk of falling into the void herself alongside Dan. If she's pulled into the void, Edward somehow survives the ordeal, emerging from the wreckage of the castle to retrieve his signature scissors. In the other case, Assistant Inspector Gotts arrives and shoots Dan, forcing him to let go of Helen and fall into the void. In the wake of the castle's collapse, Gotts and Helen successfully find and rescue Jennifer. Helen then embraces her adoptive daughter as the sun comes up, ushering in a new day for the pair. One hopefully finally free of Scissorman, for good this time. Our next story takes us either to Osaka, Japan, or Salinas, California, based on the localization, in the spring of 1999. There, Alyssa Hale, a 17-year-old high school student, travels to visit her father, Alan's friend, Mr. Philip Tate. Along the way, Alyssa holds onto a red amulet, which holds a strange power over her. As she gazes into it, a terrifying vision overtakes her. She sees herself holding a knife standing over her friends, who lie dead in a pool of blood. This vision disturbs Alyssa deeply, as she has no memory of such an event. However, Alyssa harbors another personality within her, a malevolent entity called Bates. After being forced into mental health treatment for the murderous actions of this dark alter ego, Alyssa is left unable to recall the horrific incidents from just 1 month prior. Despite the evidence, she refuses to accept that she could be responsible for such horrific actions. Alyssa then realizes the importance of the amulet. Its power seems to keep Bates at bay, and as long as she has it, she believes her soul will remain safe. Meanwhile, Philip Tate and his wife Catherine sit in their kitchen, deeply troubled by the Maxwell curse. As they discuss the curse and Ashley's imminent arrival, Catherine goes to check the door. After she leaves, a scream rings out, and as Philip goes to check on her, the horrors of the night begin. When Alyssa arrives at the Tate residence, she finds the house eerily empty, with no sign of Philip or the rest of his family. As she explores the home, she hears strange noises and discovers what appears to be pieces of a dismembered body, each lying in a pool of yellow blood. As Alyssa explores the house, she realizes that these body parts belonged to her now deceased cousin, Ashley Tate. This revelation causes Bates to take over Alyssa's personality, forcing her to find her dropped amulet to regain control. Alyssa soon finds 2 other members of the Tate family. Ashley's sister Stephanie, now driven murderously insane, seemingly by a golden statue from Alyssa's father that's rumored to be attached to the Maxwell curse, more on all of this later, as well as her brother Michael, now trapped inside of a suit of armor he was trying to hide from his sister in, also driven to a murderous frenzy. Alyssa finds her uncle Philip, but his incoherent ramblings leave her with more questions than answers on what's going on. When Alyssa hears her Aunt Catherine scream out, she finds her under attack by Stephanie. The girl then attacks Alyssa, stabbing and killing her, unless she had previously stashed her amulet, allowing Bates to take over. After Bates gives Stephanie a swift kick in the face, Alyssa regains control. At this point, Alyssa's actions can leave Stephanie free to continue to chase and eventually murder Catherine, before Alyssa discovers her aunt's body and is then stabbed as well directly after. In one possible other scenario, Alyssa, or Bates, meets Philip and follows him into the dining room. Soon, they hear Philip scream and find his dismembered arm, holding a key. Using the key to unlock a door to the nearby reading room, they discover Philip in the den, sitting in a chair, missing his arm. Suddenly, Stephanie bursts through the window and attacks, stabbing them both, bringing this possibility to an end. In another possibility, Alyssa, possessed by Bates, finds Philip in a secret basement under the reading room, clutching the golden statue, claiming that since they've both touched the statue, they're both now cursed. To put an end to it, Philip then strangles Bates, bringing this possibility to a close. Otherwise, Alyssa realizes that she must burn the golden statue to bring an end to Stephanie's rampage. After throwing it into the fireplace, however, Stephanie is able to stab Alyssa if she doesn't pick up her dropped amulet. Otherwise, Alyssa successfully burns the statue, causing the evilness inhabiting Stephanie to leave her body. Both exhausted from the ordeal, the girls then fall unconscious to the floor. Alyssa is then taken to the nearby Memorial Hospital, where she soon awakens to find a man who introduces himself as Detective Alex Corey from the Monterey County Police. Corey was called by Catherine, who discovered the 2 unconscious girls and phoned the police, who brought them to the hospital. The pair's discussion is then interrupted by a man's scream, causing Corey to rush out into the hall to investigate. Alyssa also exits shortly after, shockingly finding the hospital infested with the green-skinned, zombie-like monsters that were once the staff. After fighting them off, Alyssa meets a newspaper reporter named Doug Bowman, who's currently investigating a big story going on in the hospital. After he walks off to poke around more, Alyssa finds a document he was reading detailing a man named George Maxwell. Catching up with Corey, the detective reveals to Alyssa that the zombies have the same yellow blood that was found in the Tate household, leading Corey to believe Philip Tate, who is now missing, to be behind the whole ordeal. Hoping to learn more, Corey decides to go to the Memorial Pharmaceuticals research lab, where Philip serves as the director, leaving Alyssa behind at the hospital alone for some reason. Alyssa soon learns that she isn't actually alone, however, as she and Bates find the surviving head nurse as well as the hospital's director, Henry Kaplan. Kaplan, gone mad, attempts to strangle Alyssa, hoping her corpse will distract the zombies long enough for him to escape. Bates is able to kick Kaplan off and reach the nurse's office, where he finds a file outlining an experimental cerebral toxin, a parasitic bacterium creating the zombies. Returning to Kaplan, the crazed man attempts to strangle the girl yet again. This time, Alyssa is saved by a gunshot coming from outside the room. Alyssa exits into the hall to find a pale woman with black hair, who cryptically claims to have only saved Alyssa because she won't let her die so easily, before walking off. Alyssa then finds Doug once again, who has learned about the research lab on his own, offering to take Alyssa there with him. Alyssa declines, instead attempting to escape the hospital on her own. When she finds the exit locked, Corey arrives and shoots it open. With the doors now unlocked, however, a crowd of zombies attack. Alyssa faints from the shock, leaving Corey to shoot off the invading creatures with a shotgun. After his action-packed and way too long heroics, Detective Corey takes the unconscious Alyssa to the Memorial Pharmaceuticals research lab next door, where he waits for her to awaken. When she does, Corey simply leaves her alone yet again. Hoping to find her Uncle Philip, Alyssa looks around the facility, finding Doug Bowman, who warns her about a man he saw covered in blood, carrying a large hatchet. She then finds a dissected human body in one of the labs, making her wonder what her uncle had been working on. It isn't long before Alyssa meets the man covered in blood, George Maxwell, wearing a red Hanya mask and wielding the giant hatchet. Alyssa avoids the man's attacks, escaping from him to continue exploring the research lab. At this point, Alyssa can possibly be randomly killed by Maxwell, who throws the suit of armor Michael Tate was trapped in through a glass ceiling, crushing her as it falls. Soon, Alyssa finds the pale woman once again, who finally introduces herself as Shannon. If Bates is allowed to take over, Shannon shoots Alyssa, killing her and ridding the world of the cursed girl. Otherwise, Shannon simply sends Alyssa off so she can have some fun with her. Alyssa and/or Bates then continue their search through the lab, with them soon meeting Maxwell face to face. Maxwell simply tells them that you weren't supposed to have been born, before slicing at them. If Bates has control, the blow connects, and Alyssa is sliced with the hatchet, killing them in this possibility. Otherwise, Alyssa escapes the ghost head once again, finding the biggest surprise yet awaiting her. Alyssa is shocked to find her father, Alan Hale, handcuffed to a pipe. If Bates is in control, he confronts Alan, who claims that Bates shouldn't even exist, calling him cursed. Bates, blaming Hale for all that's happened, stabs the man, killing Alyssa's father and bringing an end to that possible story. Otherwise, Alyssa finds the key to the handcuff and frees her father, who tells her to quickly meet him in the lab director's office. There, the pair are interrupted by Maxwell. Alan ushers his daughter into a neighboring room, stating that he'll be staying behind to talk with Maxwell about something that had happened between them. In the other room, Alyssa finds her uncle, Philip Tate, who is claiming to have uncovered the secret of the Maxwell curse. Philip states that the curse was nothing more than a rumor, started by her father, Alan Hale. Alyssa tells him that her father is in the next room, and Tate leaves to find him. Alyssa then takes an elevator down to the lower levels of the lab, finding more zombies and human test subjects. She then comes across Doug Bowman once again, who states that he's been unable to figure out what's going on. Defeated, Doug decides to leave, offering to take Alyssa with him. At this point, Alyssa can come to her senses and simply leave with Doug, leaving the mysteries of the Maxwell curse far behind her. If Alyssa stays behind, she encounters Shannon, who breaks down, claiming that Alyssa ruined her life. Shannon then states that Alyssa's curse has befallen her, and she attempts to strangle the girl out of frustration. If Alyssa has her amulet and Bates isn't able to take control, she simply dies in Shannon's arms. Otherwise, Bates fights back, kicking Shannon away, forcing her to run off. Alyssa then escapes out into a graveyard on the grounds, finding her uncle Philip mortally wounded on the ground. In his last breaths, Philip states that her father, Alan Hale, fooled him. With his disconnected final words, Tate warns Alyssa about the golden statue, explaining that it wasn't cursed, but rather part of Alan's plan. Philip Hale then dies from his wounds, leaving Alyssa with a key. She uses it to enter a room with several disembodied body parts, as well as, strangely, the golden statue. In the next room, Alyssa, or Bates, finds Alan Hale, who confirms that he lied about the Maxwell curse. Hale allows Alyssa to continue on, where Shannon eventually finds her. The woman states that she won't allow Alyssa to escape, before Alan arrives to interrupt them. Shannon then reveals that Alan abandoned her when she was just a little girl. Hale then tells Shannon that if she wants to take someone's life, it should be his instead of Alyssa's. Realizing that there's no true vengeance in her future, Shannon takes a cyanide pill and immediately collapses, her lifeless body spilling on the floor between Alyssa and Alan. Alyssa asks her father who Shannon was, to which he replies, "My daughter." Alan walks off, and as Alyssa follows, she finds Detective Alex Corey. Corey, having found Philip's body, has decided that it's time to get to safety. He offers to take Alyssa with him, and she's given the final choice of her journey. If she's smart, she goes with Corey and escapes safely. In the more likely scenario, however, Alyssa realizes that she can't just run away and leave things like they are, pressing on to find her father and the answers he possesses. She soon finds him, as well as George Maxwell, inside of a secret shrine containing a giant mask much like the one Maxwell is donning. Hale tells Maxwell that he had always envied his brilliance and wealth, admitting that it was him who drove the masked killer insane. Alyssa confronts her father, who finally reveals to her that she is not his daughter. Instead, Alyssa was George Maxwell's daughter. Maxwell actually fathered a twin boy and girl, who were prophesized to be the cursed twins of the Maxwell curse. Hoping to bring an end to this curse, Maxwell buried the twins alive. Hale later dug up the grave, finding the baby girl and the golden statue, adopting her and raising her as his own daughter, Alyssa. Maxwell then turns to attack Alyssa, forcing Hale to shoot him down to continue his monologue. He then goes on to state that he infected the golden statue with the cerebral toxin bacteria to further torment him. Alan then says his last goodbye to his daughter, warning Alyssa to leave the building as it's about to explode. Alan then collapses, and a shocked Alyssa isn't given time to grieve, as Maxwell stands back up and raises his hatchet. Just as Maxwell brings the massive blade swinging down, Alex Corey shouts out to Alyssa to get down. She does so, and he fires out a shot, bringing down George Maxwell once and for all. The pair then escape and watch from a distance as the research lab burns from the explosion set off by Alan Hale. Alyssa laments the destruction in her wake, feeling like everyone's death was her fault, to which Bates slyly comments that he's not going to die. Corey consoles her, stating that she died there once already, before walking off to take care of the rest of the zombies. Alyssa then smiles as he walks away, leaving her future unknown. Our next story takes us to London, England in the year 2003, where we find 14-year-old Alyssa Hamilton attending boarding school. She receives a letter from her mother, Nancy, who explains why she sent Alyssa away. It was due to her grandfather, Dick's, disappearance 3 years prior. Nancy apologizes for abruptly ushering Alyssa out of the house, but insists that it was for her own protection. The letter then takes a dark turn when Nancy warns that Alyssa will be in even more danger as she approaches her 15th birthday. Nancy ends the letter by urgently advising her daughter to go into hiding until the birthday passes. Directly ignoring her mother's wishes, Alyssa rushes home to figure out what's going on. She arrives at the Hamilton house only to find it eerily empty, with no sign of her mother. Instead, she encounters a mysterious figure known only as the Dark Gentleman. He tells Alyssa that her mother left the previous day and won't be coming back, then ominously remarks that he's been waiting for her for a long time. With that, he ascends the grand staircase, leaving Alyssa alone. Determined to find answers, Alyssa begins exploring her family's home. Following an eerie piano melody, she's inexplicably transported back in time to London during the Blitz of World War II in 1942. There, she navigates the war-torn streets while pursuing the source of the music. Her journey leads her to a tailor shop, where she witnesses a young girl named May Norton being attacked by a deranged man wielding a sledgehammer, aptly named Sledgehammer. This murderous subordinate becomes fixated on Alyssa, forcing her to evade him in a desperate chase. As Alyssa evades Sledgehammer, she encounters restless spirits of the dead, trapped by their ongoing anguish. By returning cherished items to these souls, Alyssa helps them find peace, allowing them to escape their torturous imprisonment. Realizing that May's spirit is also bound to this world by sorrow, Alyssa decides to retrieve her father's pocket watch, which she must bring to the concert hall where the girl was supposed to perform. In a final confrontation, Alyssa once again faces Sledgehammer, and in a moment of awakening, her vial of holy water transforms into a sacred longbow. She uses this newfound weapon to vanquish Sledgehammer in a burst of golden light. Reuniting May with the pocket watch allows both her spirit and her father's to finally pass on. Exhausted by the ordeal, Alyssa collapses, waking up back in her own bedroom and wondering if it was all just a dream. Suddenly, Alyssa's childhood friend, Dennis Owen, appears at her window, much to her surprise. Dennis explains that Nancy had instructed him to give Alyssa a key to her grandfather Dick's room if she hadn't returned. Alyssa rushes to her grandfather's room, where she uncovers startling secrets about her lineage. There, Alyssa learns that the women in her family are rooters, girls who possess the ability to communicate with the dead and are destined to fight malevolent beings called entities. These entities are served by immortal killers known as subordinates, who sustain themselves by feeding on the souls of their victims. Alyssa then realizes that Sledgehammer was one of these subordinates, whose power was tied to the torment of May's soul, and that by destroying him, her own rooter powers must be awakening. Alyssa's quest soon transports her back in time once again, this time to 1963. Where she arrives at the home of Dorothy Rand and her son, Albert, both of whom are blind. Their spirits are trapped, endlessly searching for one another. Alyssa learns that they were brutally murdered by a subordinate known as the Corroder, a sadistic killer who uses sulfuric acid as his weapon of choice. To free their souls, Alyssa retrieves a shawl that Albert had made for his mother before confronting the Corroder, using her rooter abilities to defeat him. Afterward, she returns the shawl to Dorothy's spirit, allowing the Rands to reunite and pass on. During this period, Alyssa catches fleeting glimpses of her mother, who vanishes before she can get close. Returning to the present, the Dark Gentleman suddenly transports Alyssa to the top of a massive, hellish clock tower inside of a dark realm in which he rules. There, the Dark Gentleman claims that her mother, Nancy, was killed by a subordinate long ago, but Alyssa refuses to believe this. Undeterred, the Dark Gentleman simply states that soon they will unite together and obtain eternal life. The Dark Gentleman's true intentions, as it turns out, are to perform the Ritual of Engagement, a dark ceremony that requires the heart of a rooter on their 15th birthday in order to grant immortality as an entity. The Dark Gentleman then lifts Alyssa before throwing her into a pit, where she eventually lands in an industrial abyss. Alyssa then finds herself hunted by yet another subordinate, Chopper, a twisted executioner wielding a giant axe. As she navigates this new nightmarish landscape, she experiences haunting visions. She sees her mother speaking to her when she was a baby, promising to give her a special clover-shaped pendant when she was older. More disturbingly, she sees her grandfather, Dick, murdering her father, Philip, by throwing him over a balcony onto an axe below. After another confrontation with Chopper, as well as discovering the spirits of those who had previously fallen victim to him, Alyssa learns of the Ritual of Engagement and begins to piece together her place in it. Alyssa then confronts Chopper one last time, finally managing to defeat the subordinate. The spirits thank her for setting them free, and she is momentarily reunited with her mother, before the Dark Gentleman seizes Nancy, telling Alyssa that she'll soon fall victim to his final subordinate. After the Dark Gentleman disappears with her mother, Alyssa finds herself transported to the ancestral Burroughs Castle, at the base of its massive clock tower. A side note, the Burroughs family is intended to be the same as the Barrows family from the first two games. She spots Dennis and rushes over to him, but their reunion is short-lived as they're ambushed by the Scissor Twins, Scissorman Ralph and Scissor Woman Jemima, the two final subordinates each wielding oversized shears. The twins capture Dennis, forcing Alyssa into a perilous chase through a dilapidated hospital. Navigating deadly traps and evading the relentless twins, Alyssa soon learns the shocking truth. The Dark Gentleman is actually her grandfather, Dick Hamilton, possessed by the vengeful spirit of 17th century landowner Lord Darcy Burroughs. Burroughs had himself tried to achieve immortality through the Ritual of Engagement generations ago, but failed when his own daughter died on the eve of her 15th birthday. Now, Dick has allowed Burroughs to possess him, hoping to succeed where the Lord had failed. Alyssa eventually finds the Scissor Twins, using her rooter abilities to defeat them both and rescue Dennis. The Dark Gentleman then appears on the stairs of the clock tower, congratulating Alyssa for defeating all of his subordinates, challenging her to meet him at the top of the tower to save her mother. Alyssa then climbs to the top of the clock tower, where the Dark Gentleman's form returns to that of her grandfather. The girl begs her grandfather to free her mother, but he reveals that Nancy has been frozen into a stone statue. Dick then claims that he was forced to stop her when she tried to prevent him from conducting the Ritual of Engagement, which he sees as his destiny. Suddenly, Dick's form transforms once again into that of the massive Lord Darcy Burroughs, who makes note that only 5 minutes remain until the clock strikes midnight and Alyssa's 15th birthday commences. He then uses his own supernatural abilities to bind Alyssa to a ceremonial altar so he can retrieve her heart, changing her into a sacrificial gown for some reason in the process. Unable to move, Alyssa is forced to watch in horror as Darcy swings his massive blade, shattering the stone statue that was once her mother before her eyes. Dick's form then returns, and the spirits of the subordinates arrive to assist in the ritual. Just when it seems all hope is lost, Dennis intervenes, distracting Dick and throwing a final piece of the clover pendant her mother had been holding. Alyssa, who had picked up the other pieces from the subordinates, combines them to reform the Clover Pendant, allowing her to summon her bow to fight against Burrows in one final battle. Empowered by the lingering ruder strength passed down from her mother, Alyssa unleashes her full potential, manifesting in a blade of light. Alyssa then uses it to pierce Darcy's corrupted form, sending him plummeting into the depths of the tower. As the structure begins to collapse, Nancy reappears before Alyssa. The pair then share one final embrace as the clock tower falls to the ground. In the wake of the destruction, Alyssa awakens to find herself in a tranquil field of clovers, holding the pendant her mother had promised her. Seeing Dennis nearby, she rushes over to him, pulling him into a relieved hug. Looking up at the sky, Alyssa softly whispers, "We did it, Mum." While this brings us to the end of the Clock Tower series proper, as mentioned in the intro, the legacy of the franchise continues a couple steps further, starting with the criminally trapped on PS2 title, Haunting Ground, also known as Demento in Japan. This story begins presumably in the early 2000s, where we find 18-year-old Fiona Belly, trapped inside of a cage. Fiona, now draped only in a thin white sheet, had been in a car crash with her parents, but can't remember how she's wound up in her current predicament. Nearby, her captor, a large hulking oaf wielding a meat cleaver, is scared by the lightning of a storm outside while preparing some kind of meaty stew. After the giant stumbles out of sight, Fiona finds that he had clumsily left her cage unlocked. The girl escapes her confines, but soon finds that she's not actually alone. Suddenly, a white German shepherd jumps past her, startling Fiona before running off as well. Fiona then finds the dog's collar nearby, embroidered with his name, Huey. Fiona exits out into the grounds of a castle, where she stumbles into a room featuring a large portrait of an old man. Suddenly, Fiona is joined by a mysterious woman with violet hair who provides her with a change of clothes. When Fiona asks the woman where they are, she simply speaks towards the portrait, telling her master that she will keep Fiona comfortable. As a flash of the memory of the car crash overwhelms Fiona, the woman vanishes just as quickly as she appeared. After Fiona changes into the clothes provided for her, while not being able to shake the feeling of the portrait watching her, she further explores the castle. She soon finds her lurching captor, Debilitus, caring for a small doll. When Debilitus spots Fiona, he sees her as another plaything, beginning another familiar chase. As Fiona eludes this hunchbacked horror, she continues to search the castle for a way out. Strangely, Fiona finds a statue, seemingly of herself, but pregnant. She then hears an unknown man's voice declaring that this is a vision of the future that awaits her, as she soon will be his. Later, when Debilitus corners Fiona, he's seemingly called off by another cloaked man. This man quickly introduces himself as Ricardo, keeper of the castle. Ricardo tells Fiona that as her parents, Master Ugo and Mistress Ayla, have both died in the car crash, she is now the sole surviving heir of Belly Castle. As this knowledge and the flooding memories of the crash, as well as a mysterious figure who had appeared beside their car, rush over her, Fiona faints before she's taken to her bedroom by Ricardo to rest. When Fiona awakens, she looks outside her window to see the white German shepherd, Huey, leashed to a tree outside, clearly in distress. Fiona frees Huey from captivity, instructing him to run and not get caught this time. However, when Debilitus corners her inside the castle again, Huey arrives to protect her and scare the Hulk off. The two then become fast friends, exploring the castle while working together. Soon, Fiona begins to learn that there's more beyond her capture than a coincidental car crash. A mysterious phone call from an unknown party warns her about Ricardo, referring to something she has called Azov. Continuing to avoid Debilitus, Fiona secretly observes the mysterious woman speaking with Ricardo, who warns her that he won't let the old man get the Azoth. Eventually, Fiona is able to stop Debilitus from pursuing her for good, either by killing him or by trapping him under a chandelier. If the latter path is taken, Debilitus assists Fiona on her journey, even giving her a key to unlock the main gates of the castle in some cases, allowing her to leave right away, much to the dismay of a character that we'll soon meet. Regardless of Debilitus's fate, Fiona is soon met by the mysterious woman once again, who informs her that dinner is served, before taking her to a large dining table to eat. As Fiona feasts on her meal, the woman laments that while her creator made her the perfect woman, she is incomplete, unable to taste or feel pleasure or pain. An uncomfortable Fiona sneaks away to bed, where the woman again visits her in the night. She then looks at her own reflection, again stating that she isn't complete, before bashing her face into the glass, taking a shard of the now broken mirror to attack Fiona. This mysterious woman, Daniela, then becomes Fiona's relentless stalker, that is, until it is time to do her duties as the castle's maid. As Fiona avoids her new pursuer, using more mirrors to distract her, she learns that someone has been filming her movements throughout the castle. Soon, Daniela corners her, revealing that Azoth is the essence of life inside of all living creatures, although Daniela and seemingly others are after Fiona's in particular. When Fiona reaches a stargazing room with a glass dome, Daniela initiates their final confrontation. Licking her weapon and calling Fiona's body filthy, Daniela begins her assault. Outmatched in physical combat, Fiona instead uses her wit, revealing a mirror in the floor just beneath Daniela's feet. As she sees her reflection, Daniela lets out a piercing, high-pitched scream that shatters the glass of the domed ceiling above. As the shards of glass come raining down, a large one pierces Daniela's chest, killing the artificial woman as she lets out a final, relieved grin. Fiona finds a key that Daniela was holding onto and enters another part of the castle, where she again encounters Ricardo. Ricardo pulls a flintlock pistol on the girl before beginning his own pursuit of Fiona, revealing his intention to use her Azoth to live eternally. As Fiona and Huey make their way through the castle, they eventually escape into the surrounding forest. However, Ricardo catches up to them, shooting and injuring Huey. Ricardo then corners Fiona, revealing that she inherited her father, Ugo's Azoth. Ricardo then tells Fiona that he is a clone of Aureolus Belli, an ancient alchemist who has passed on his Azoth from generation to generation. Ricardo then unmasks his face, revealing it to be identical to Fiona's own father's. Ricardo then further explains that Ugo was another clone of Aureolus, but when he decided to abandon the quest for immortality, Ricardo ran his car off the road, killing him and his wife. Unable to comprehend the weight of this revelation, Fiona faints once again. Ricardo then stands over her body, telling Fiona that she is about to give birth to him all over again, before he carries her off once more, this time to an operating room inside the nearby water tower. Ricardo then probes Fiona on an operating table, examining her Azoth and commenting that it'll be ready within days. At this point, if Fiona had treated Huey poorly during her journey, she wakes up in a glass box as Ricardo taunts her, claiming that she belongs to him, and again tells her that she will give birth to him using her Azoth. Fiona's expression reveals her terror, and she screams out. Sometime later, in a castle bedroom, Ricardo tenderly strokes Fiona's hair as she sits in a chair with a bulging abdomen, very visibly pregnant. As he leaves, Fiona wakes up, her face twisting into an empty smile before she lets out a hysterical, haunting laugh. Otherwise, Fiona eventually awakens to find herself in one of the cells within the water tower, where she is saved by the goodest of boys, Huey. The pair once again come face to face with Ricardo, who uses an alchemical concoction to make himself invisible to Fiona's eyes. Ricardo then tells Fiona that he owns her once again, forcing her and Huey to flee as they continue their escape. Climbing to the top of the water tower, Fiona and Huey again find Ricardo, who engages in a final battle for his rebirth. During this battle, the pair manage to push Ricardo off of the edge, resulting in him falling to his death. Fiona then walks across a bridge connecting the water tower to the House of Truth, where she is met by an old man in a wheelchair. This man, an elderly alchemist named Lorenzo Arolas Belli, reveals that he is the creator of both Ricardo and Ugo, effectively making him Fiona's grandfather. Lorenzo reveals his desire for Fiona to join him in achieving immortality so they can together uncover the Great Truth, a philosophical revelation that their ancestor, Arolas Belli, dedicated his entire life in search of. Unlike Lorenzo, however, Fiona has no desire for immortality and declines this offer. After Lorenzo's own pursuit of Fiona, in which he hopes to retrieve the Azoth the girl inherited from her father, she is able to trap him on a conveyor belt, which crushes him in a machine, seemingly killing Lorenzo. Unfortunately, the alchemist's death is short-lived, as he appears before her again, resurrected in a younger form, due to him stealing the Azoth from Ricardo's corpse. Ugh. After his transformation into his younger self is completed,
oh no, he's hot!
Fiona and Huey battle Lorenzo, and despite him falling into a lava pit, he continues his pursuit as a flaming skeleton. During their escape, Fiona deals with the falling statue, before Lorenzo ultimately dies from the fire engulfing him. Fiona gives one final goodbye to her grandfather before she and Huey find a door leading out of Belli Castle, their final path to freedom. While Fiona's nerves give her trouble unlocking the door, Huey helps her calm down and open it. At this point, depending on his fate, Debilitus may appear with a large pair of hedge clippers. In a final confrontation, he and Fiona stare each other down before Debilitus simply bows before her, showing his pacifism and perhaps even friendship towards the girl. Fiona and Huey then leave the castle, finally free, as Debilitus turns to the garden, humming as he trims the plants. With Haunting Ground's conclusion, time seemed to run out for the Clock Tower franchise, along with any more potential follow-ups. That is until series creator Hifumi Kono launched a Kickstarter for a new spiritual successor of his own design in 2015. The resulting product was 2016's NightCry. This story takes us out of mansions and castles and to the seas, on the night of August 18th, 2016, aboard the Oceanus cruise ship. There, we find Monica Flores, a 21-year-old woman beginning her journey by reluctantly attending a social event at the ship's bar. Monica mingles with the other guests, including the owner of the ship, Vigo Boridzov, who she assists by boiling his prosthetic eye to sterilize it. Ugh. Monica leaves the party, encountering an old woman muttering quietly to herself on an elevator, as well as a strange young girl in a hallway on her way to meet her friend, Harry. As Monica speaks with Harry, he goes to grab a soda from the vending machine. Yes, soda. I'm from Wisconsin. As Harry goes to reach into the machine to grab his drink, however, his arm is violently pulled inside of it. Harry's body is mangled, and the young man dies as a nightmarish figure rises from the ground. Monica then sees the evil force that killed her friend take shape as the Scissor Walker, a grotesque hooded woman with hollow, decayed features, dressed in ragged robes and wielding a massive pair of familiar shears. After avoiding this latest scissor-wielding foe, Monica retrieves a cell phone from another dead body, charging it in a nearby room to learn that the man it belonged to was named John Thompson. Hoping to reunite with her friends, Kelly Butler and Jessica Lopez, Monica attempts to return to the floor of the ship where they last saw each other. On the way, Monica uses the phone she found, potentially sending a message on social media warning the outside world about the string of ongoing murders aboard the ship. Monica soon learns that the elevator to change floors is currently out of order, requiring a new fuse to regain power. Around this time, Monica receives a call on the cell phone she found from Angie Brown, the wife of the phone's former owner, John Thompson. Angie tells Monica that John was an electrician and should have a fuse in his briefcase. Monica then retrieves the fuse, as well as a wedding ring from a severed hand she finds in a vending machine. More on this later. She then returns to the elevator, replacing the fuse to get it working again. While riding it, however, the lights go out and the old woman appears once again, disappearing when the lights return and the doors open. Monica soon finds Jessica inside of a locker, but is horrified to learn that she's already dead, as the scissor walker lunges out from behind her friend's corpse. Escaping again, Monica reaches the ship's deck, where she finds another surviving crew member named Eric. With no other choice, the pair use an emergency ladder to climb to a lower level, hoping to escape from their murderous stalker. At this point, if Monica had not sent out a warning post on social media, she's accosted by three figures in strange, cult-like masks. The three then toss her overboard, leaving Monica to drown in the waters, which reveal a ghostly image of the Scissor Walker. Later that same night, we find Professor Leonard Cosgrove on the deck of the ship, speaking on the phone with another survivor, Maria Ortiz, who he entrusts with watching his students, including his distant relative Rooney Simpson, who have barricaded themselves inside of a cargo hold. Leonard then speaks with Eric, as well as the surviving purser, Kobe, who reveals that all of the ship's lifeboats have gone missing. Luckily, Leonard finds an inflatable raft, and after spotting some kind of fire burning in the distance, decides to use it to row to a desert island with the two surviving crewmen. After reaching the island with the burning fire, Leonard leaves Kobe and Eric on the shore to guard the raft while he goes to investigate. Following some footprints, Leonard soon finds a radio, which he's able to use to overhear a call from the Coast Guard to the Oceanus, reporting that they've picked up a distress call from the vessel. Leonard responds, relaying his approximate location, to which the Coast Guard replies that they'll send a search and rescue party. Leonard continues exploring, soon finding a strange well leading to a dark void. When Leonard inspects the well, he's shocked when he starts to see ghostly figures attempt to crawl from it. Continuing on, Leonard distracts a figure wearing one of the cultist masks to sneak past him into their camp, where he finds the bonfire he saw from a distance. Luckily, Leonard is able to locate two halves of his own mask, although retrieving them doesn't always prove to be easy. Using some found superglue, Leonard reassembles the mask, donning it to disguise himself amongst the other cultists. Exploring their camp, Leonard finds a cabin with an office set up in its loft. There, the professor finds a beaker filled with water being boiled on a wire mesh over a flame. Submerged inside the beaker is a familiar prosthetic eye. Believing that his students should know about this development, he posts about it on his social media, warning them to look out for someone with a false eye. Distracting the guard outside the cabin, Leonard is able to sneak back out to continue his exploration. He soon comes across another well, using some non-slip gloves he found to safely rappel down, where he finds a suspicious tunnel. Leonard is then able to get past a narrow corridor of ghostly hands, reaching a secret room. There, Leonard finds a coffin-like box, placed inside a sigil overlaid with the silhouette of the Oceanus. This leads Leonard to believe that some kind of ritual is to be performed on the ship. Inside the box, Leonard finds a man named Jerome Turrio, unconscious with ritualistic scars covering his body. Leonard carries Jerome back to the beach, loading him onto the raft with Eric and Kobe. The pair then row the raft back to the Oceanus, but just as they arrive, they're rocked by an explosion. A shocked Leonard looks to see what happened, and as he turns to check on the others on the raft, he's shocked to be met face to face by one of the cultists, mask and all. It's at this point that if Leonard failed in his quest, the Oceanus disappears, only to finally be found after nearly a week adrift. Shockingly, however, the ship is found to be completely empty, with no survivors bodies, or any other clues left behind as to their disappearance. The Oceanus goes on to become one of the greatest mysteries of the 21st century. Otherwise, we rewind the clock back to the party aboard the Oceanus earlier that evening, witnessing the events through the eyes of Rooney Simpson, fellow classmate of Monica's, who is also Professor Leonard Cosgrove's distant relative. While she meets and finds common ground with Jerome, she's eventually overwhelmed by her feeling out of place at the party. Rooney then decides to leave the crowded atmosphere to find solitude elsewhere on the ship. Rooney then finds herself on the deck of the ship, looking over a railing at the waves below. The strange young girl then appears before Rooney, urging her to jump into the water. As she falls into the girl's trance, Rooney approaches the rail, but she's quickly pulled back by an arriving Jerome. Surprisingly, Jerome empathizes with Rooney, sharing his own compulsions with her. Feeling a connection, Jerome invites Rooney to continue their discussion in his room over drinks. Accidentally agreeing to the date, Rooney makes her way to his cabin. As he waits for her, Jerome falls asleep on his cabin's couch, dreaming of the scissor walker approaching him and looking at him closely. Jerome awakens when Rooney arrives, and the pair talk about Jerome's nightmares and memory lapses. As their conversation delves into philosophical pontifications, Jerome decides to leave to check on room service. After he's gone, Rooney notices an envelope slipped under the door. She takes it, seeing it's addressed to Jerome, deciding to give it to him when she sees him later. Suddenly, Rooney hears something coming from the bathroom, and when she goes to investigate, she's suddenly attacked by the scissor walker as the little girl appears once again to mock her. Luckily, Jerome arrives just in time to grab the scissor walker, distracting the monster long enough for Rooney to escape into the ship's movie theater. There, she finds an unconscious Kelly Butler, who she wakes up and speaks with. Rooney learns that Kelly escaped the scissor walker, who simply absorbed all of the bullets that were shot at it by the security guards. Rooney continues on, exiting the theater and later getting a call from Kelly informing her that the other survivors have taken shelter in the cargo hold. Rooney decides to go there to join them, and Kelly lets her in once she arrives. Inside, Rooney meets with the other survivors. Amongst them are Viggo Borodzow and Angie Brown, the latter of which gives Rooney her husband's cell phone number. Ultimately, however, Rooney decides that she can't simply hide while Monica, Jessica, and Leonard could be in danger. She asks Viggo if there's a way off their floor, a brave gesture which he claims might make her worthy of experiencing eternity. Taking a key from the old man, Rooney begins to follow Viggo's directions to an emergency stairwell. On her way, she's visited by the young girl once again, who congratulates her on still being alive while claiming that she needs to be punished like her parents used to, by locking her in a closet. Inside the stairwell, Rooney finds Jerome and finally gives him the envelope. Jerome opens it, finding an old photograph of himself as a child inside. Also in the photo are who Jerome assumes are his real family, as he was adopted before he was able to form any memories of them. Jerome then explains that he was attacked by a group of masked hoodlums after they were separated, some of them wearing crew uniforms. This leads Jerome to believe those in the masks to have something to do with what's going on, and they may be hiding amongst them. Rooney then heads off on her own once again, receiving a call seemingly from Jessica, warning her not to trust Eric, hanging up abruptly before explaining. When she finds another cargo hold filled with shipping containers, Rooney is shocked to find Monica's necklace. She then calls John Thompson's phone, which Monica was last seen having, until she finds the container it's ringing from. Using her quick wit and a nearby forklift, Rooney drives full speed into the container to bash it open, finding Monica safely inside. Monica explains that she entered the container to hide, but was locked inside by an unknown party, leaving her trapped. Monica then relays Professor Leonard Cosgrove's warning about the man with a prosthetic eye, revealing him to be Viggo. Now hoping to get the full story, Rooney continues on, leaving Monica behind to wait. At this point, if Monica had retrieved the wedding ring from the severed hand in the vending machine, she gives it to Rooney as well, Continuing her exploration, Rooney soon comes across Eric, who reveals that he was with Leonard on the island but got separated from him. Eric claims that Leonard was thrown into the waters, leaving his current fate unknown. Eric also states that the nearby elevator is out of power, leaving Rooney to figure out how to bring it back online, making this game full of original ideas. Rooney then calls Kelly Butler, still in the cargo hold, asking her to find a nearby switchboard to restore emergency power. Kelly agrees, and Rooney informs Eric, who gives her antibiotics for her and Monica's injuries. At this point, Rooney can return to Monica and give her the antibiotics, taking them herself as well to avoid any infections from their numerous wounds. Rooney then climbs into the air ducts, receiving a frantic call from Maria informing her that the monster had gotten into the cargo hold, before her screams cut the call short. Continuing through the ducts, Rooney witnesses Maria being chased by the scissor walker through the vents. Unfortunately, the girl is unable to do anything but silently watch the scissor-wielding murderer claim another victim. Rooney then emerges from the ducts into the ship's hospital. There, she is shocked to find Professor Leonard Cosgrove hooked up to some kind of medical machinery while being suspended in a vat of liquid. As Rooney gets closer, the full grisly picture is revealed to her. Leonard's body below his neck has been stripped to his bones and organs, only being kept alive by the machine he's hooked up to, leaving his current existence one of constant pain and torture. Leonard asks the girl to kill him, and she reluctantly puts her teacher out of his misery by turning off the life support machine. After watching the life leave his eyes, Rooney is again taunted by the little girl, who chastises her for killing again. It's then revealed that this girl, named Connie, is merely a manifestation of Rooney's guilt. As it turns out, years prior, Rooney and Connie were on a boat, and when the former went to grab the latter's hat, Connie attempted to push Rooney into the water. Unfortunately for Connie, she was the one who ended up falling in, getting caught in the boat's propeller, and later dying. Realizing Connie's death wasn't her fault, Rooney finally walks away from the girl, knowing that her decision to show Leonard mercy was the right one. After more encounters with the scissor walker, including electrocuting the monster, Rooney reaches the elevator and uses it to reach the upper decks. Side note that if Rooney doesn't turn off the life support, Leonard's head appears to her in the elevator, still attached to his spine. This snake-like manifestation of Leonard then coils around Rooney, seducing her to stay with him forever. Similarly, if Rooney didn't take Eric's antibiotics, she succumbs to blood poisoning and passes out in the hospital. We later see her walk through the halls of the Oceanus, covered in blood with vacant eyes, passing by the elderly woman from the elevator, as well as a similarly bloodied Monica. Finding Connie, Rooney stops as the girl lifts her hat, telling her old friend that now they can play together forever. Otherwise, Rooney reaches the upper deck and finds Angie Brown hiding in a clothing store. At this point, if Monica found the wedding ring and gave it to Rooney, Rooney is able to give it to Angie, revealing that it belonged to her husband, John Thompson. In exchange for giving Angie some closure and returning her husband's ring, she gives Rooney a billiard ball that seems to be important. This turns out to be the case, as if the wedding ring exchange is not made, Vigo ends up halting Rooney's progress, knocking her out with sleeping gas and giving her a similar eternal playdate with Connie. Using the billiard ball, along with others found on the ship, Rooney is able to enter the VIP room, which, unbeknownst to her, contains all of the answers she's been searching for. Inside, Rooney finds Vigo's diary, which the captain of the ship had been trying to translate. In the entry that was translated, it's revealed that the scissor walker was actually once Vigo's daughter, Yolanda, who carried his illegitimate son and grandchild, Otto. I'll let you figure that one out. Furthermore, when Rooney enters Vigo's personal office, she finds another copy of the photo of Jerome as a child with his family, leaving a haunting indication of Otto's possible identity. In Vigo's safe, Rooney finds his prosthetic eye of the Cassites, which she takes along with her. She then finds a secret doorway behind a bookcase, which leads her to a dance hall. Inside the hall is a sight Rooney could have never imagined: the corpses of all of the dead passengers strung up like marionettes, littering the hall. At this point, if Rooney had missed the clues in Vigo's room, she becomes surrounded by the cult members before suddenly waking up in a hospital bed. There, she's accompanied by Jerome, who tells her that they're currently in a hospital in Miami and that they were rescued. He then ends this possibility by ominously telling her that she has nothing to worry about. Otherwise, Rooney spots Vigo on the stage, who expresses his surprise that someone outside their brotherhood could survive for so long. As the Scissor Walker appears behind him, a distracted Rooney is then grabbed by a man wearing one of the cult masks. As the Scissor Walker approaches her, Rooney tries to break free, but her captor reveals his identity as Jerome, pleading with her to stop struggling, as his father will lead them to eternity. Luckily, Monica arrives just in time and attacks Jerome with a wooden board, knocking him out and freeing Rooney. The two women then rush to escape, but find the door to the exit locked. The Scissor Walker continues advancing, forcing Rooney to take the most drastic move yet. If Rooney doesn't act quickly here, the Scissor Walker slaughters her and Monica, leaving Eric, the sole survivor, on the ship. Otherwise, Rooney rips out her own eye before placing the eye of the Cassites in its place. Rooney then stares into the Scissor Walker's eye, using the mystical prosthetic to command the monster to take revenge on the man responsible for her creation. On cue, the Scissor Walker turns around and shuffles towards Vigo, who fearfully falls to the ground. The Scissor Walker then impales him with her shears, finally taking revenge and bringing her peace. Vigo's body then disappears in a green flame, as do all of the other strung-up bodies. Sometime later, a rescue team finds the Oceanus. On the deck, Rooney and Monica hold each other as they watch the helicopter arrive, finally knowing their nightmare at sea is over. And with that, we've reached the final chime of the Clock Tower series, unraveling its twisted threads after nearly 3 decades. From the ominous corridors of the Barrows Mansion to the haunting decks of the Oceanus, we've braved the relentless pursuit of Scissorman as well as all of his spooky successors. While the clock's hands have seemingly come to a stop, the legacy of this cult classic series continues to tick in the hearts of horror fans, myself included, everywhere. Hey everybody, thanks for watching, and a huge shout out to all the patrons and channel members for their incredible support. If you enjoyed this content, consider supporting too, and drop a comment below and let me know what video game series you'd like to see me cover next. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you never miss a new video. This has been Suggestive Gaming, and now you're in the know. What a catchphrase.